It's that kind of day. The scripture for tonight actually says, beware of dogs. It's December, and I've always sworn I'm going to take all of December off. So since I'm not taking December off, I've gone off. So I am off my December rocker. So I take no responsibility for anything I say or do for the month of December. Merry Christmas, everybody. In Philippians chapter 3, he says, finally, my brethren, rejoice in the Lord. Beware of dogs. Beware of evil workers. Beware of the mutilation. Four of my favorite words in the Bible. Beware of the mutilation. What on earth is he talking about? The mutilation. Well, he goes on to talk about that we of the Spirit are the circumcised. Meaning it's a spiritual setting aside for the service of the Lord that we've received when we've received and obeyed the Spirit. And therefore the mutilation would be the mutilation of believing in our flesh over our spirit, because our flesh gets mutilated by the act of physical circumcision. Tell that to people. I'm a Jew, tell that to people. Say, even the Bible calls it a mutilation. But, very interesting that Paul, an incredibly outspoken believer, I might add, because he probably upset a lot of people when he said, beware the mutilation, when he was referring to people think that the outward circumcision is better than the circumcision of the heart. Beware the mutilation. Beware of the mutilation. I love that. That's why I want to keep saying it, so I can call tonight's sermon, Beware of the Mutilation. It's December, and I have decided to allow myself to lose whatever marbles I have left, and then pull it all back together in January. But I know I have a big mountain to climb this month, and I've decided to climb with as little dignity as possible. And I figure if I don't worry about dignity or sanity, then I will probably have a lot of fun climbing said mountain. So, that having been said, there are a lot of fun stories I plan to share in 2014 when I reach the 10-year mark of my music ministry. However, I have an opportunity to tap into a little bit of them this evening, because I was handed not one, not two, but 3 excuses to talk about stuff. Now, when you're preparing what to share with people, confirmation is really good. You know, if you're about to preach but you can't, and the dogs are barking, and the first thing you're going to say is beware of the dog, that's pretty good. Pretty good. But I'm trying to remember what order this all happened in. Okay, I ran into someone here in Phoenix that I knew briefly in 2004 when I lived in Laughlin, Nevada. And we had fallen out of contact because we weren't very close. And I met this person in 2004. We couldn't figure out what month it was, but we think it happened when it was cold outside. But it had to be before the summer, so it had to be during the early part of the spring. Very early part of the spring, when there was still some cold left in Laughlin. And we ran into each other the other day, and when I realized who this was, I said, didn't you come to Laughlin? Haven't we met? Is that where I know you from? He was like, wow, yeah, I was there in 2004. What have you been up to? 2004, in August, I released my first record. So since the last time he saw me, let's see, what have I done? What have I done since the last time I saw you? I've released 16 records. I've moved pretty much over 3 million records. I've done thousands of concerts. I've written hundreds of songs. I have thousands of videos on YouTube. I've touched countless souls for Jesus. I've pissed off way too many people. And my fashion sense has bloomed. But I talked about it, I really told the whole story. I'm not going to tell the whole story tonight, but I told the whole story of what happened since the last time I saw him, what happened in the subsequent few months, because at the time and I got a college degree since the last time I saw this person. I got my degree. But, you know, he goes, wow, you've lived like a whole lifetime since the last time I saw you. That's amazing. I go, yeah, what have you been up to? What's new with you? Well, you know, I had the same job, the same house, you know. Very interesting to have a timeline in the form of a human that I remember exactly who I was, where I was at, what it was like to be me, what I was facing, what I thought my future was going to look like when I met this person, and how completely different my life became minutes later. Minutes later. And then I received an email from a gentleman that had produced a record that was not released that I did in the 80s. That we had worked together in the 80s. And he wrote me and he said, I am so proud of you. We haven't talked in decades. I am so proud of you. I was at a gas station a couple years ago and one of your songs came on their radio. And I heard you on the radio. I recognized it immediately. I totally knew. And he said that I found out what you've done with your life. Yeah, I've been following you ever since. He goes, I can't believe what you've accomplished. When he said, you operate on he said some weird number like 250 when other rockers operate on 90 and never even take flight. He said, but you just go full throttle. You've always been like this, and you fought against everything, and you fought against the odds, and you did everything you swore you would do, and you did it on your terms, your way, and you are still doing it. He said, you are still doing it. He goes, it's amazing that, you know, every time I go, wow, he's done a lot. He puts out another record. He just keeps going and going and going. He goes, it's amazing. You have, everybody talks about finding your passion and finding your bliss, and you've made a complete lifestyle of doing this. And he said, on top of everything, you've totally dedicated it to God. And it was so nice. It was such a nice thing, you know, for him to write me. And then I talked to a friend of mine who will probably get her own chapter in my memoirs, because she single-handedly went behind my back and kick-started this music ministry. If she had come to me with her plan, I would have said, don't do that. But she went behind my back and she told people about me and got me my first concert when I wasn't ready, when I didn't have a record ready and everything. And that event totally changed my life. And we talked, and I told her about this conversation I had with this gentleman that I ran into, that I met right before my first record, Thank You. And what it feels like to have a timeline, because I don't spend my time thinking about what I've done. I know it's a lot, meaning I know it's been a lot of work and I've put out a lot of stuff. I know that. I've seen my website. There's a lot of stuff. But I'm too busy doing the next thing. I just put out a new record. I've already recorded the next record that's coming out next year. And I'm working out Typhoid Mary, which will be the follow-up record. And I'm already on to the next thing after the next thing all the time. So there's never been any stop and smell the roses along the way. There never has been for me. I mean, and in a way, I guess that's kind of sad, because I never really enjoyed any of this, to the degree of just basking in it. But on the other hand, I've been so busy, it's been a blur, which probably is good for me. But it was really interesting to have to stop and tell someone everything I'd done since the last time I saw them. Give a quick recount of my life? How did I get from that to that in the last 8 years? And then it was amazing to have someone who knew me years and years and years ago. And I'm sorry, it was it the 80? Yeah, it was like 88. It was the late 80s, I want to say, that I recorded this with my friend. It was interesting to have someone who was there when I formulated the concepts, the glam rock concepts, and how much he had to do with helping me get the sound of that together. And we recorded a version of the sex song, and we recorded a version of Sugar in the Water, and so, you know, it's interesting, you know, it's interesting, like, to have connected with him and had his perspective of watching the timeline. And you know, all three people have made comment of, I think you've taken a lot of grief being you in the last decade. And I say, yeah, it's an unlimited amount of grief, an unlimited amount of criticism because of the way I've done what I've done. And I said, and that's what's so weird, is I haven't had much time to stop and smell the roses, but I've had no choice but to step in all the fertilizer. And you know, and that's what it's been like, and that's the reality, is that there's been so much unsolicited criticism, so much negativity to go along with, you know, what's felt like a lifetime. The last 8 years has felt like a lifetime. I've said to everybody, I don't want to quit. He's being good now. Oh, then he starts again. I don't want to quit, but if I had to be done now, at least I've done what I've done. At least I've done what I've done. Remind me to tell you why that was funny. I'll tell you later. I want to embarrass him, but I don't want to do it in the film. But but the reason I'm bringing this up is because in the midst of all this reveling in all the great things God has done, if you don't close it all the way, it'll be even louder. Now y'all know what happened. But if in the midst of all this reveling of what God's done, and people writing me and saying how much they're touched by me, and it's been in a season of a tremendous amount of activity, like letters from all over the world of people contacting me saying how my music's touched their life and done this and done that, and so much stuff, like I don't want to go as far, but maybe I will just say the windows of heaven have opened up, and you know, all these neat little compliments have fallen from heaven in the hands of human angels, and it's been lovely and it's been amazing. And then in the midst of all that, how much crap I've gotten. How much crap I've gotten to go with it. It's like, you know, every rose really does have its thorn, you know, and you know, there's been so much, and I'm like, wow, how does someone sort through all of this and decide what God's saying in all of this? Because I can't be good and bad at the same time. I mean, if anyone could, I probably could figure out a way to pull that off. But I mean, I can't be doing a good thing for God, doing this song or this sermon, and have the exact same song or sermon be an offense to Him. It can't be. One or the other has to be true. And how do I figure out which one's which and what I am? That's why I put absolutely no stock in any of this. That's why all of it, all the compliments, they feel good, and all the insults feel bad, but none of them go into the place that I define what's right or wrong. None of them do. None of them do. Doesn't mean I don't appreciate the compliments. It doesn't mean I don't put curses on the people that insult me, but it doesn't define my relationship with the Lord whatsoever. You know, almost to the point that I'm so compartmentalized now that none of this does. That it's almost separate from my relationship with the Lord, even though obviously it's very intertwined. But as far as my self-esteem or my spiritual self-esteem, this would be a very dangerous place for me to find any of that. Because it's just so hot and cold all the time. It's just constant. Just constant. Constant. And it's always the same things. It's like one person likes a song and they came to the Lord because of it, and another person says, that song's from the devil. God told me to tell you. I mean, what do? Just record the song and pray for the best and forget you did it and go on to the next record. You know, that's all I can possibly do. And that's what I said. I just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I think putting one foot in front of the other and not looking to the left and not looking to the right and not taking the compliments too serious and not taking the insults serious at all, because insults are never good. Never. Never, never, never. Is something Jesus said about, unless a man is willing to take the plow and not look to the left or to the right, he's not worthy of the kingdom. Because where you look is where you're going to turn the plow and start, plowing the wrong stuff. And I think that a very, very sober, dedicated walk in the Lord is probably a very private function. It's probably a very private function. So when people see a video or hear a song or see a picture and tell me about my Christianity, I don't think they're anywhere close to my Christianity. Good or bad, by the way. People say, oh my gosh, you're an amazing representation of Christ. God forbid. I mean, really, I think that this has to work both ways or it doesn't work at all. That this is just the thing I do. This is the thing I do to share the Lord with the human race in the best way, and let's be fair, the funnest way I know. You know what I'm saying? This is the way. This is the way I've chosen to share the Lord in my life, that tomorrow I will wake up and no matter how many compliments or criticisms I've gotten, I won't rest on my laurels because of the compliments, or I won't shut down because of the insults, because I can't wait to do it again. That's what I see. And I am convinced God called me to not only do this, but do this the way I do it, but I can't really prove that, can I? Nor can anyone prove he didn't. So I always take that off the table. I go, let's just say God didn't call me to do this. He sure is blessing me nonetheless, because I'm still doing it. And by the way, I'm still doing it tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. And some nights I can't even sleep. I'm so excited. That new song, Young and Beautiful, I love that thing. I think it's so cool and so interesting. And I know the kind of people that write me. I know the kind of people that contact me. I know the kind of people that are downloading my stuff on iTunes. Yankolovich, Y-A-N-K-O-L-O-V-I-C-H. I know the kind of people that I'm singing to. Gosh, there's so much drama here. I know the kind of people, and all I know is what I'm saying to them in that song. And I know that I already know this, but they don't have anybody saying it to them until they hear it from someone who says, the Lord wants you to know He knows how you feel. That you don't feel special anymore. And that's amazing. And historically speaking, I was trying to count, but I was like doing this, when you're asleep, but you're awake and you're asleep, that twilight thing, and you start dreaming, but you think you're awake. And you start like making lists and plans and stuff, then all of a sudden you're on a pirate ship eating an egg salad sandwich that the dinosaur comes and takes, and you go, gosh, I think I'm dreaming. How much of this did I dream? Did I even write any of the lists down? That was an important list. This happened last night. That I was thinking about what my list is, and the list was like, I was the first gospel recording artist in history to write a song about sexual abuse from the perspective of men. The first. And for the record, and I always say, I dare you to prove me otherwise, I'm the only. I mean, if you think about it. And there's an amazing story about what happened with that song. and what it did for me at the time. But the short version is a lot of people have it on their iPods, or did, or whatever they use now. What do you guys use now? I still don't know how to use my iPod. I used to perform with them, and I was terrified of them. Terrified of the iPod. Anything that's that small that has control over every single thing I do in front of a room full of people is wrong. I kept looking for 666 somewhere on it. And, but I think about that and I go, there are things that I've done that God called me to do, that I'm convinced God called me to do, and I was the first to ever do them. And I certainly, if I wasn't the first to do some stuff, I did it way better and cooler than everybody who had gone before me. But I'm saying this because I am convinced that every single human being, if they truly walk with the Lord, will have a contribution to humanity that can't come from any other source. Because it doesn't make any sense that someone else didn't write a song about sexual abuse from a male perspective in gospel music. You know, it doesn't make sense. But for some reason, you know, that was something I got to do. You know, for me personally, thank God that wasn't the high point of my life or career, but it's still kind of cool. But I was thinking about it. I was going, I've said to people, there's absolutely nobody on planet Earth doing a ministry anything like mine on planet Earth. Now, I've said that now for 8 years, and I'm still telling you, it's fascinating. It's because you would think, not because I'm so great, but you would think there would be other people that would think about, hey, there's something really cool I can do for God. Why don't I try this? They probably are. If they're walking with the Lord, there's probably, and I know there are, a lot of amazing ministries, just nothing like this one, because this one is mine. You could dress up just like me, and you still won't be me. I mean, this one's mine. I bring my history, I bring my walk to the Lord, I bring my everything to this ministry, therefore it's individual and singular. And I'm convinced that every single human being is like that. Therefore, the last thing I would ever consider doing is saying, don't do that for the Lord. Don't do that for the Lord. Because the one thing that I know is that if I'm uncomfortable and if I'm offended when nobody's looking, I'm looking. You know what I'm saying? I'm watching. That is the one thing that will get my attention if you get on my nerves, man. You look up your enemies on Facebook more than you ever look up your friends, because you just want to make sure something bad happens to them. Well, after a while, you learn stuff. And I think about, oh God, the list is really long. Bear with me. In no particular order: David Bowie, Blondie, Iggy Pop, Lou Reed, New York Dolls, Kiss. I'd say another artist, but I know them personally, and I don't want anyone's feelings to get hurt if they see it. But someone really big in my life, that's 7 already. I hated all these people the first time I heard them. First time I heard them, I went, ugh, what the hell is that? That's terrible. That's terrible. Can you imagine? I had a David Bowie record and I gave it away to my cousin because I didn't want it. My first Bowie record I didn't want. You know, when something's new, when something's different, when something rubs us the wrong way, when something doesn't fit in our 3-Dog Night box, we poo-poo it. It's called change. And some people really don't like change. Some people aren't comfortable with change. Some people don't like new food. Some people don't like new people. Some people don't like different types of things, different types of people. And they react negatively immediately. You know, I meet people all the time and they look at my hands and say, oh my God, oh my God, you know? I'm like, really? Really? I mean, I would never do that. I would never do that. I mean, I might walk up to someone and say, isn't it a little early in the season for that? But I But seriously, I mean, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine, like, what would possess my ego so much to really criticize another adult. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I understand when I'm 12 that I'm going to be insulting to another 12-year-old. You know, but as an adult, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine feeling comfortable with that. And yet, how much criticism everybody gets. I don't think it's just me. I sometimes feel like I'm like a magnified social science project of what's happening to everybody. Because I think everybody feels this. I think everybody feels this. I had a big fight on my Facebook the other day, and you know, someone, you know, had insulted me, and I took off their comment, and then they wrote me private and made a comment about my taking down their posts, and I said, well, can I go on your Facebook and say you're ugly? Can I post on your Facebook and say you're ugly? You know, I mean, really, I mean, you know, where does it stop? Well, it never stops. It never stops. And in this instance, when I say people, I mean Christians. Because in the end, that's who I'm preaching to. In the end, I'm preaching to Christians and saying, beware of the mutilation. Beware of the mutilation. Beware of depending on your flesh to such a degree that you think what you're doing is spiritual. Because those of us who absolutely know they're totally off their rockers and totally dependent on the Lord, who are terrified of screwing up, are the last people in the world you should be insulting for not listening to the Lord. I mean, I don't know anybody taking the risks I'm taking in my life. So I don't know anyone who's more scared of falling than me. You know what I'm saying? So I spend a lot of time going, are you sure? Because this is awfully fun. Are you sure? Because, you know, I got this email, and I got this, and I got that. And someone's going to watch this and say, well, even if God tries to stop him, he's so convinced. All I can say is, look at what I've done and imagine what God stopped me from doing. That's all I can say. Imagine the stuff I didn't leave in. Imagine the stuff on the editing room floor of my ministry. Seriously. Seriously. I got an email last night about my F-bomb in the my Chuck Norris sermon. It was I thought of you. I thought of you. And it was really nasty. It was actually on my Facebook page. I took it down. It was really nasty, and my response was really nasty. And I left it up hoping it was up long enough so this person could see it, because I meant it. I meant it from my heart. I meant it from my heart. And I just said, I really hope you got the message. You know, I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I really hope you got the message, is what I wrote, which is really sarcastic and nasty. And then I took it down and I went, you know, it's terrible that the only way we can communicate with the brethren is being jerks, is by being snide, you know, and I'm guilty of it, and I'm proudly guilty of it. I say it all the time, I'll dish it right back. Sometimes that's the only language people understand. But I want to say that a long time ago, when my pastoral ministry started in California, I had a pastor from one of the greatest churches in Christian history, still to this day, one of the most respected churches in Christian history. I went to a pastor at that church and I said, I want to meet with you once a week while I have my ministry, because I want to have accountability, and I want to go over with you every week what I've said and done, so that someone I trust can say, don't do that ever again. Don't do that ever again. And my first week, my first time I preached in that period of time, I preached a sermon about eunuchs. And at the very end of it, I said, you don't need balls to serve Jesus. And I told him that I said balls at the end, and he was just laughing. I go, why are you laughing? And he goes, because the new crop of Christian ministers are going to